I am making a plugin/platform called Loggingway, which aims to provide an alternative to the ranking system of fflog, and hopefully more in the future. The platform is in an early stage, and because every code will have a battle system rework, I have to delay it. The rest of this video is going through a lengthy explanation of why. Have fun. FF14, A Realm Reborn, came out 13 years ago. fflog has been live for 10 of those 13 years. 10 years of parsing. 10 years of being obsessed over the funny colored numbers that shows up after raid. But why? And what does it represent actually? I intend for this video to be a manifesto of why I made Loggingway, where I plan on taking the platform, and most importantly, how I think the entire parsing system in Final Fantasy could be improved. Or at least how the community could think better about, performance in this game. So FF14 has existed for 13 years now. The raiding scene has come a long way, and now the problems we have today are very different from the problem we used to have. Namely is that the community got way bigger with Shadowbringer, and that's when raiding really picked up, and I mean really, it used to be way smaller, so if you think waiting in PF right now is bad, it used to be considerably worse. Really, the game design came together in Stormblood. That's when most of the things that we take for granted now came about. Mainly the one arena, one boss, mechanic design, job design. It's where really everything came together in terms of gameplay. Now, during Stormblood, parsing wasn't that big of a deal. Namely is that we didn't have RDPS, which meant that if you wanted to parse, you usually had to run some kind of specific composition of all the buffs like Astro, Scholar, Dragoon. Yeah, Dragoon used to have a single target buff also. So you had to really, if you wanted to parse, you really had to focus on doing just that, which meant it was really limited to a few people who were really interested in it. It wasn't as universal as it used to be, rather as it is right now. And then Shadowbringer released, and with Shadowbringer came the infamous denser problem, and namely, for parsing, denser was a problem because you just put a buff on someone for the entire duration of the fight and they do 10% more damage. So you can imagine that if your only metric is the amount of damage you dealt at the end of the fight, somebody having a permanent buff with no strings attached that give them 10% more damage is more likely to parse higher than someone who doesn't have it. Which means that, if you didn't have dense partners in, the first 2 week stream of Shadowbringer, parsing was just impossible, and, that's just how it was.
1 through 4,999.
I actually don't know between you or Ivan who gives me the most metered. It feels kind of.
Well,
I don't know. I'm gonna try Novan.
I'll look at the log and I'll tell you which is faster. It's okay, Ivan. Don't be mad. It's my time to get patted. You've been patted this entire time.
I mean, it's alright, Ivan. You still beat him.
Well, since it's my turn on the Xbox.
If you get first place and he gets patted, he's actually the worst player in this fucking game.
So they had to come up with a new solution called RDPS. Now, don't get me wrong, RDPS isn't a bad metric. It's just that being it the only metric by which you measure isn't really great, especially in a game like FF14 that has a lot of randomness in its damage. Forget about the fight itself, depending on the strat you're using, you might be losing uptime or whatever. Just think about the damage. Every damage in FF14 is subject to 5% plus or minus variation. Everything, dot, auto attacks, every single one of your skills. On top of that, you have crits, you have directed, and then you have the combination of both crit directed, which is also another layer of randomization on top of the final damage number. And that's without even getting into gear, because somebody with best in slot is obviously gonna outperform somebody who's wearing minimum high level crafted set, even if, the guy with the crafted set is pressing his button way better. And let's not even talk about split clears or the fact that in Party Finder you don't even get to choose if you are gonna get loot this week or not.
Bro! No! Oh, you fucking took that? Are you fucking kidding me, bro? No! Fuck off, dude!
So that means that there's another layer of parsing in which you simply do not have any control whatsoever about. Parsing, of course, is only one aspect of the game, but regardless, I think it's very obvious to most people that the current system is flawed. So, in the spirit of making things better, let's talk about game design for a bit. Of course, if the only way to compete is to basically have someone park a buff on your face every pull and force you into specific composition choices, then the leaderboard isn't very interesting. A fundamental of any competitive setting is that all participants must start from a game state that you would qualify as equals. For example, in chess, it wouldn't be very fun or competitive if you could start the game with 2 additional queens because your friend brought the magic stone that just lets you do that. Due to the nature of FF14, it's hard to equalize every player. However, we already have a damage abstraction that puts everyone on equal footing. Potencies. Potency isn't affected by gear, and for a given ability, it is always the same no matter what. It's about as good as you're gonna get in this game. The only problem is that potencies don't take into account buff. But that's okay, we can just use math, apply some modifiers, and there we go, we have a metric that's not tied to eye level, is the same for everyone within a given class, and rewards using big abilities under buff to maximize damage dealt. Now, how do we rank these scores? Right now, FFlog is using a percentile-based system, which is basically the same as being graded on a curve. The worst performance is whoever dealt the least amount, the best is whoever dealt the most. The system works well when the player can be in direct opposition with each other. If we take League of Legends for example, while the ranking system has changed over time, the percentile distribution of the population tend to remain the same, with clear thresholds such as top 30%, top 5% and top 1%. This system works because in League, a diamond player can fight a bronze player directly and they are expected to win 99% of the time. FF14 is a PvE game. You can't fight other people directly, and that's why the percentile system fails. If every part was the same but with a 0.1 DPS variation, the one at the bottom would appear bad even if their performance is the same. At scale, this problem is rare to happen, but it manifests in different ways. If you are behind on gear, then your maximum parse is effectively limited. Same for kill time, crit RNG, 5% RNG, and so on. Of course, if we just use our new score, percentile would still exist. The difference being that by removing as many RNG elements as possible, we can remove the need to farm a fight for hours on end so the stars can line up. Obviously, we can't remove all the RNG from a fight, and neither should we. But ideally, if you press the exact same button as the best black mage in the world, your score should not be too far from them. Now, that's the theory, and I'm still working on putting the pieces together. And Evercold having a battle system rework means that, unfortunately, I have to wait to properly design what the final system looks like. We can have better. We can also have it open source, so the community can decide how a critical part of its competitive experience is designed, without the need for an ad-filled uploader with ancillary dependencies. At its height, I imagine Logging Way to also help people. Have a timeline of the fight and what button you should press to do as much as possible with your job. Being able to check what pace you are on, knowing that it won't be all for nothing because you have a sub 10% crit rate on your big abilities. That said, the platform is still far off, but it's better to try and fail than to sit here and wonder what could have been. Anyway, that's about it. You can check it out in the description. I'm also streaming Kefka Ultimate every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Sunday, 1 PM to 4 PM EST or 7 PM to 10 PM for Europeans. Feel free to ask me questions there, or just watch the stream for incredible content about me coming to raid with no shoes on. Oh, alright, for the Logging Way video guys, also for the closer, I need like somebody to say like the joke about me having no shoes on, please.
Oh, don't worry. You can scroll through the Discord and we're gonna scare a fucking piglet.
No, but like, can you just say it so I have the clip?
Well, there's no joke about you not showing up to raid with no shoes on, because that's just it. That's reality. You always show up to raid with no shoes on. There's no joke to be made there. That's just your constant state. Got your fucking rancid ass feet out all the time, which is disgusting, by the way. Put on a fucking glam. Put on a real glam. Put on some real fucking shoes. Put on some thigh boots. I literally made you a glam. Then you didn't even use it. What is wrong with you? God. Can't believe you raid with me, freak.